What's up, Nick?
Hey, Phil, how you doing, CJ?
What's up, man? So, yeah, it's kind of a somber mood right now with everything that's going on with policing, especially the shooting of Dante Wright. Um, and what I wanted to do with this episode was not necessarily talk about that a specific case, but talk about, or what brought me to this topic was this. We're having these police shootings, these police murders, really is what it should be called. These police murders of Black people, specifically Black men. For the most part, no consequences are happening. But what I wanted to find out is what's behind these killings? Like, what's behind an officer feeling afraid of a Black person when the officer has the gun? So I wanted to find out, I wanted to discuss more what is the root cause of this behavior from policing, because really it indicates an issue in our society and our culture as Americans, and that is white fear of Black people, and specifically white fear of Black men. So that's the topic I kind of want to examine. I want to go into, what is white fear? Where does it come from? How does it affect, every area of our lives, especially Black people? So that is where I wanted to start with. Nick, did you want to say something before we get started into that
Yeah,
discussion?
this is a good topic, and I kind of want to discuss the theory behind why police officers are so trigger happy when it comes to the African American community. I gave this a lot of thought, and my answer is not gonna make a lot of liberals happy, and this is why I've been aggressively calling them out over the last few days, and I will expand on this a little bit later in the show, where I see a lot of them are even more open to bashing cops. But then these people actually frustrate me more than our opposition almost, because you gotta understand what they're doing. They bashing cops under the guise of funding them more. So what they're doing is deeply misleading. I'm gonna expand on this a little bit more, but I'll pass it right back to you because throughout the course of the show, I'm gonna explain what I mean when I want to talk about that. I think that's an important uh, problem with this white supremacist police state that we're fighting, because it's a pattern that I've seen for the last 10 years. I'm gonna break it down here very soon, but I'll pass it right back to you.
Yeah, great. Can't wait till we get to that. So where I wanted to start with this discussion is, bottom line, where does this white fear come from? Because for a large section of American white population, they have little to no interactions with Black people. And this includes cops. So it doesn't stop with cops. They have no personal interactions with Black people. So if you have no personal interactions, for example, with French, what you see in movies, what you hear on social media, what you talk about, or what you read on mainstream media, that's where you're going to get all your ideas about French people, since you don't deal with them every day. And it's the same thing with Black people. So if you don't have a lot of Black friends, you don't deal with a lot of Black people, and every image you're seeing of them is these manufactured propaganda, racist things. And let's say you're a police officer in an area in Minnesota, and you grew up like this, and you grew up watching, racist propaganda. You grew up watching mainstream media criminalize Black men. What do you think what effects does that have on that person for everything that they do? So I it to me, white fear is stoked by one, history. The history of this country has to make white people feel uncomfortable, or some white people feel uncomfortable around Black people. That's one. Just the history of the United States. And then when you have a country and you have a ruling class who actively criminalizes Black people and Black men in order to mass incarcerate them because it's all connected to money. This is why mainstream media manufactures this racist propaganda. And I'm talking about it permeates everywhere, because I'm talking about movies. I'm talking about history books. I'm talking about, television shows, songs, like just everything. White fear permeates. And what happens to white fear when you add that to a legislator? Then you're talking about racist legislation. So just like people, liberals, for example, are manufactured into following Democrats, white people are manufactured into fearing Black people, and specifically Black men. What are your thoughts, Nick?
Yeah, and the propaganda is so strong and so deep that there are a lot of people who consider themselves allies who are still brainwashed with the belief that we need this police state, and they are still are the same ones who are apologizing for this. So they will have Black Lives Matter in their social media page, and once again they will complain about these police issues, but they want to prop up the police state. They're not speaking on U.S. imperialism. They're not speaking about the border crisis. I mean, these are kind of things that are state ingrained white supremacy, and they're not doing anything. Politically, they're not acting in favor of fighting that. And I'll toss this right back to you very soon. But what I was gonna say, and this is the point I want to drill home to the white progressives who believe that we should be able to take over the Democrat Party, and that should be our main goal, because a lot of these people think they're fighting white supremacy. But I'm telling them, I'm not scared of skinhead people with Nazi tattoos. Like there was that video that white supremacists picking on that Black man. I'm like, bro, I wish that was me. Like, I'm not afraid of these people. I'm like, bro, that was me. That would have went down completely different. I would have enjoyed every single second of it. So those people I'm not afraid of. I don't know no one in my personal life that is going around like, oh no, the Proud Boys.
Yeah.
You know what people are doing in real life that I know? Oh shit, the cop is over there. That's the white supremacy. So why I tell people who think we're gonna take over the Democrat Party and we're fighting white supremacy by doing that? I'm saying Joe Biden and the Democratic Party, they are white supremacy. They built the white supremacy system up. The senators that get paid the most police money are Democratic senators. Bob Menendez, number one, Amy Klobuchar, number two, and then it drops. Like there's not anyone even close from them. That's why they like those. That's why they like Amy Klobuchar. The Democrats are the party of the police state. I mean, look at the NYPD, LAPD, Minneapolis. I mean, these are the cities where we are getting killed at. So that's my natural thought. I mean, a lot of people who support the Democratic Party, they will hear what I'm saying, they will be shocked. So how do they not understand that? Because propaganda, as we mentioned now. But I'll toss it back to you, CJ.
I also think, just piggybacking off what you're saying, I also think some of it is willful ignorance. Like some of it is, yes, it is propaganda in people, but a propagandized mind, when they know they're coming close to the truth or they sense it, they shy away. So that's where it comes from. But I don't think we really understand, or we don't really put into perspective what white fear does to our everyday lives. Like it's so intertwined into every single thing that this culture does, from legislation. Like, I mean, just take it back to when the Black Panthers, when they were showing up to police stops where police had people stopped and Black Panthers had rifles and guns, watching like, okay, we want to make sure this person get home. Then all of a sudden laws are made that strips those people of those gun rights, those same people. So like I was saying, that's white fear. That's white fear being manipulated or being carried out through legislation. So that's an example of how white fear affects everything. So you're also talking about socially. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, let me chime in with something real quick.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry. I just want to add this because before I forget, because you mentioned the NRA and how they was going after banning guns when the Black Panthers was in charge, and this is one reason why I flipped my opinion on guns from back in my lib days, and I strongly agree. I wish I remember who said it. It was another strong Black leftist. Maybe I remember here soon. I saw he made a tweet that how we should all arm up. And when we show up to protest, we should show up to protest armed, make these motherfuckers scared of us. Because that is a show of force that will bring the corrupt gun lobbies to their heel as well. Because I always tell people in leftists, and this is a mistake that I saw. I got a lot of respect for this guy, Killer Mike. He made this mistake where he got a little bit too friendly with the NRA. He did an interview on NRT. One thing I got a lot of respect from Killer Mike. I just think he fucked up here. Even if you're a pro-gun, we should not be pro-NRA. The NRA is they are a corrupt organization that pushes white supremacy. That's why I wanted to bring that up, because that they were supportive of the gun control efforts against the Black Panther. And whenever there's any instance of a Black person having their gun rights being trampled on, they are nowhere to be found. They are just part of a conservative propaganda machine that peddles white identity politics. So that's why I just want to put that point there. Support the Socialist Rifle Association. But our stance, even if you're pro-gun as a leftist, should always be fuck the NRA. So that's why I just want to chime in with that. Go ahead. Go ahead,
Jay. I absolutely agree. And just a side note, I can talk and talk. So if you want to just jump in, just interrupt me. That sounds good.
That's all good.
You're gonna get me to stop. So don't feel bad if you interrupt me. So, but that is a great point. But then the question becomes, what happens when you think that white fear? Because white fear is not dangerous in the average American, in the average white American. It's not dangerous. If you're just fearful and you clutch your purse, that doesn't put me in danger. But white fear put into the hands of white people with power, that's when you get things like mass incarceration with the 1994 crime bill. That's when you get things like inequalities in sentencing, and everybody knows it, and largely nothing is done about it. So then the question I'm coming to is, what happens when you mix militarized policing with white fear? And I think we are seeing the results with Dante Wright. We're seeing the results with George Floyd, where you have police officers trained. That's what they like to say. Oh, I've been trained and trained. I'm trained. You've been trained and trained and trained. You trained in guns. You got guns. You show up. The person doesn't have a gun. You have a gun. You have backup, and you are afraid. Like, that has to be addressed as a nation. Like, white people or anyone who is non-Black who has this sort of manufactured racist fear of Black people should not be in positions of power, should not be a police officer, should not be a legislator. It's just having white fear be your guidance in things leads to what we're seeing this last week or so, which with Dante Wright, which is these police killings, and also with the trial of Derek Chauvin. So what are your thoughts, though, Nick, on that?
A lot of people don't even understand that we see white fear in their inherent bias and how they feel about people of color shows through their politics all the time. Mm-hmm. So why, and this is why I discuss foreign policy, because I do think our police state and U.S. foreign policy is connected. Why do people call it the lesser of two evils when you have Democrat president bombing weddings? It's because those people are the brown skinned people. They don't have the same level of sympathy for them as they will have if imagine if there was a white school or white wedding that was bombed, we would never hear the end of it. I mean, not saying that we shouldn't, but there would be memorials every day. It would be massive public consciousness about what happened, and anyone who's responsible for that. I mean, their career would be ruined. But we hear stories about this all the time. And look at the kids in cages at the border. Imagine those pictures of blue-eyed, blonde hair white kids in cages. People will lose their fucking shit. So that's the bias.
Let me say something about that one point. I mean, can you imagine, Nick? Could you imagine a blonde hair, blue-eyed kid, a picture behind a fence? Imagine seeing that. Like I can't even imagine that taking place. There's no way they would let a picture out like that. It's just infathomable to me.
Imagine Derek Chauvin having his knee on the neck of a blonde hair, blue-eyed white man. I mean, once again, it'd be something completely different. And this is what I mean. I pick on liberals a lot, but let's. I'm gonna jump on the conservative here because I see conservatives they feign outrage when I see every once in a while there's a story where a black police officer will shoot a white person. It doesn't happen often, but I see those stories and they always pelled it out. They say, "See, it's not just racism. See, it's a big deal. We should." And then I'm like, "Why are you?" I'm not even upset that you're upset at that case. So why are you upset at that case? But whenever a white police officer kills an unarmed black man, you want to inherently take the defense of the police state. So once again, I mean, they have that open bias, and we discuss a lot of the subtle bias that the liberal class have, but that's part of their politics. And when we see the clips that Status Quo putting out there, once again, this is why I'm a big supporter of them because they are on the ground actually showing what the police are doing. I don't know how anyone in the liberal class sees that. And then their inherent reaction is, fuck it, give them more money. Like, what is that disconnect? So what is that bias? And I think it is that where they know that, hey, we're not going to be the people targeted by these police. They'll just be the people that brown. We're not worried about them. They don't have to worry about seeing that blonde hair, blue-eyed kid having a police officer on their neck or being shot and paralyzed like Jacob Blake. And now the person who did it, they're free. they just got off and now they're back to work. I just can't possibly imagine that.
So I think what we're talking about can be described as white sympathy, and it works the opposite is white fear. Like you put there's a lot more sympathy for a white person going through this or going through that than there is a person of color. That's just.
Oh, I know what I saw this. I'm gonna see while you talk. I'm gonna see if I can find this. I'm not gonna there's a story I saw a tweet on Twitter, but I didn't really read it. But it actually kind of like sums exactly what we talk about now, where they was comparing the cases of a white woman who was killed by the police and the black black woman who get killed by the police. I think they were just comparing to Breonna Taylor. And then the premise of the article was the massive difference of what happened. So I'm gonna find that. I didn't read it. I'm gonna see if I can, so we can have a real example. I'm gonna see if I can find it. Go ahead, CJ.
If Breonna Taylor were white, there would be something like Breonna's Law right now. There would be some sort of law saying that police can't do this, and that law will be memorialized by that white female that was murdered by a cop. If that happened, even though it would have to be so many things to have it to where police kill a white person in their bed, but let's say it did happen, it would be a completely a different reaction. And, things like how long it took for them to fire him, all those things would have been different. He would have been fired right on the spot. He would have been put on leave without pay instead of leave with pay. Just a lot of different things would have been different if the victim were white. So I answered what happens when you mix militarized policing with white fear. But, the other question, I kind of delved into it a little bit. What happens when you mix white fear with legislation or legislators? And you get things like welfare reform. You get things like the 1994 crime bill. You get things like gun control from conservatives, specifically targeted to make sure that gun rights are removed from people of color. So what I'm trying to basically get at is that policing and legislation is probably two of the things that can affect a person's life the most and the most severe. And when you have that influenced by white fear, like what avenues do Black people have to get this fixed, or any person of color to get this fixed? Vote? Vote for who? Another white person who has white fear of Black people? You get what I'm saying, Nick? I'll pass it back to you and see if you.
Yeah. And I'm glad I had this tweet that went viral, because I was just thinking back at last year. Remember last year during the George Floyd protests, and whenever there was a police violence incident, a bunch of liberals will get on Twitter and they will all hold press conferences and said, "This is why we should vote." And they will always say that whenever we had concerns. And I was getting very upset because I was accurately pointing out why this is problematic. The reason why that was problematic, they was doing that because they was trying to sheep herd people back into electoral politics to silence their criticism of the police state. So let me repeat that. They was using electoral politics to silence people's criticism of the police state. Meaning we will complain about these instances and they will say, "Oh no, it's not a big deal. Just make sure you vote." Oh, this will never happen if Donald Trump was the president. So they putting the onus on the voters instead of the system. So that's I was telling people that at the time. Now I was telling people this is the sham of electoral politics and why they always use it to silence the Black voting base, because we voted for Joe Biden. He won. Well, I didn't vote for Joe Biden, but he won. They regained the Senate, and now they control all branches of the government. Yeah. And nothing had changed. In fact, you have an increased flow of military gear under Joe Biden.
I heard about that. That is incredible. That is insanity. Incredible.
Insanity. So that's what they, and that's why my point I was trying to get to originally. I was trying to remember. I went on long still. But I was trying to tell people the reason why I didn't vote for Joe Biden, because you were saying what avenue Black people have to even fight against this, is we need to have our own voting block. And I was telling people, even though the Green Party has a ton of its issues, what if we got the Green Party to 5% through the merits of the Black and Latino vote? And then you have the Democratic Party or even the Republican parties, if they want to peel off that minority class. Let's say a Democrat loses a race by 2%. And then they see the Green Party got 5%. That's largely because Black people said, "Fuck this, we're gonna vote for the Green Party." And then if you have a candidate who want to win, they're like, "Okay, we gotta give them a concession in order to get them to vote." That's the only way we could have any power in electoral politics at all. And then, but people are not even doing that. I mean, Black people are still being sheep herded to the Democratic Party and still voting for them in the mass. That's why I always try to tell people we can't allow them to do that, because I mean, once again, I said there's a lot of problems with the Green Party. But the Green Party supports reparations, so there were a lot of people who was talking all this shit, trying to. I mean, it's a good way to attack progressive politicians who are not where they should be at that level on this issue. But they never bring that up when it comes to Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, for example. The same people that was like, "Okay, we're not going to vote for Bernie Sanders because he don't support reparations. Vote for Joe Biden in the general election." Like, what? Or do you actually care about this issue or not? Because we had someone on the ballot who was for reparations, and you guys didn't vote for him. So I honestly don't want to hear it from you. I voted for the reparation ticket, and there are a lot of issues with the Green Party right now. But imagine if all the brothers came and took it over. That's what I'm saying.
Well, to your point, Nick, to your point about the Green Party, we're going to go off on a tangent only because it is something that I'm interested in. The Green Party has the platform that has 90% or more, if not higher, of the platform that a lot of leftist progressives want. But there's something about the Green Party that is just not infectious Can
Yeah,
you?
it's bad leadership.
Let me tell you what I thought of the Green Party. It might be the name. Part of it may be the name, because the Green Party, before I understood what it was, I thought the Green Party were just a bunch of tree hugging people and like they didn't have any other substance. I always thought the Green Party was a party based on only thinking about environmental issues, and that's why I thought they called themselves green. So there may be a lot of people in that, in that segment. But I also, another thing I want to bring up about the Green Party, I think that they should run a Black person at the top of the ticket next time. But it needs to be
exactly. That was a big mistake. They didn't do that.
It needs to be somebody with some oomph, like not somebody who just gonna read a teleprompter. It needs to be somebody almost I mean, I know he's not gonna run, but like a Cornel West, somebody who is a good orator, somebody who can get people riled up. It doesn't necessarily have to be a well-known person if it's a person who can energize people. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and that was a giant mistake. And whenever I praise the Green Party, I always see a lot of leftists like, "Oh, what about this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I get it, I get it." But I used to believe that we can take over the Democratic Party, and that's obviously it was a stupid idea. I think it would be much more realistic for us to take over the Green Party. I actually talked to some people in the party, and they say, "Yeah, we want people to do this." They're like, "Yo, we got local hubs, and we are begging people to come in and help us." So I think there was a misunderstanding there. So when I want people to support the Green Party or any other third party, it's not me endorsing that third party as it is right now. It's because I talked to a lot of those people, and they're like, "Yeah, we want new bold leadership." And
what are
back
the
to
issues you're hearing, Nick? Because I'm not hearing these issues, but then again, like I purposely disengage a lot on Twitter because it just gets a lot of nonsense. But what are the issues that leftists have with the Green Party that you hear? I know
there's once you start having organizations, there are always that leadership is start getting out of touch, and I think there was a lot of people complaining with that with the Green Party. There's a lot of people that was upset how they treated Dario and the primary. I looked into those and I talked to a lot of people, and it's just kind of a she said thing. Unless I don't know anymore, but once again, that just kind of show that there was this kind of leadership disconnect. And once again, I think Angela Walker should have been the top candidate over Howie Hawkins. I understand why they chose Howie Hawkins, because Howie Hawkins, once again, a lot of people shit on him. I think he wasn't a really good candidate because he wasn't charismatic. Like honestly, just straight up, like those things matter. He just wasn't a charismatic guy. But he was part of, like, people need to understand, he was part of the original coalition who wrote the Green New Deal that LC and the squad took. Like LC and the squad took their model of the Green New Deal and they watered it down that the Green Party wrote. And Howie Hawkins was part of the group that did it. That's why they chose him. Because after Joe Stein stepped down, all right, Howie Hawkins is kind of next in line. The issue is, what does that remind you of? Oh, Barack Obama's lost. Now it's Hillary's turn. So that turned a lot of people off. They're like, yeah, we know Howie Hawkins did a lot for the party, but you guys can't annoy people because that's the same thing that the Democratic Party is doing. So these are just some of the legit complaints that people had on the Green Party. There was also the Alabama chapter that had got a lot of controversy because they have a turf in charge over there. So people was like, what? And I'm like, okay, so that's just something we just got to deal with. You know what I mean? So there are legit criticism of the Green Party. This is my same mindset when it comes to Bernie Sanders and the AOC and the squad. Like, even when I like them, I don't care when people criticize them. They're good. They can handle it. The same way I think, even if I want the Green Party to do well, I think they can handle the criticism where they can be legitimately criticized. So I'm probably missing a little bit of this, but the only reason I know a little bit, and I was conversing with a lot of leftists, because that was back when in the summer where I was like vocally tweeting out positives on the Green Party. I even had someone from Howie Hawkins' campaign reach out to me trying to do an interview, but it never materialized. So I think they saw me, and then some people. That's why I said there were some hubs that were like, yeah, we would be open if people want to take us over and change how we're doing things, because I had people reach out to me and say like, yeah, dude, we really need. Once again, I was talking to people in the Green Party, and they need that to happen. And I think the Green Party getting a little bit more momentum because the People's Party started out really strong, but they lost a lot of socialists when they said they don't want to run on a socialist agenda. That's when Ryan Knight quit. Once again, he didn't. It wasn't like a big beef. It wasn't
Yeah, no,
anything that.
it's just a change. It's difference of
Yeah.
opinion. Yeah.
So I think that helped the Green Party a little bit more. Because now there were a lot of people that was being peeled away from supporting the Green Party. That was like, oh, okay, actually, they are the only socialist third party alternative. My stance on this, and I'll pass it right back to you, was at the time I was being supportive of the People Party and the Green Party, and I was saying there's no reason why we couldn't have two left wing factions that organize mutual aid programs and organize direct action, have them work as a team and have them coordinate ballots. So like you have a strong Green Party candidate in this area, don't have a third party MPP or something like these. Like there's a lot of strategy. We can have two strong left wing factions and have that to challenge the system. And that was the argument I was making. Like why not? But once again, there are a lot of people who just they were like really factional, where they was like either MPP or fuck Green Party, or there was Green Party and fuck MPP, and that was kind of hurting both of them. So I'm still curious to see how this is gonna play out. But I know there were a lot of people who was excited about MPP at first that are now more sympathetic to supporting the Green. And now they see that MPP is not running on the socialist agenda, which the Green Party was doing unapologetically. Once again, one last thing, they on the platform. Once again, I'm an issue oriented voter, and I tell you guys all the issues. And I see Nancy, she put a comment. I forgot about that. That is a legit criticism of Howie Hawkins. He says he was a Russiagator. Boo, that hurt. But I am a policy-based voter. And you know how they on their platform they say they want to slash the military budget by 70%. 70% military budget slashing, reparations, double Social Security. I mean, when I look at the platform, I'm like, how the fuck could I not vote for it? Like, what? This is ridiculous. So I have a lot of issues, but we can take it over. So that's kind of my breakdown on third party. But I'll pass it right back to you.
Yeah, and to your point, we got RJ joining us.
Nice.
To your point, what I believe is happening with the Green Party is I like to use this analogy about the Green Party and really just third parties. What's up, RJ? Welcome to the show. And just about third parties, and that
I'll be right back.
The analogy I use is this: it's like you have a circus and you have this baby elephant, and the baby elephant is tied with a thin string, but he can't get out because he's a baby, and he tries and tries and he tries every day till he gives up. But the elephant is growing and growing and doesn't understand that now he's big enough to break this chain, but he's been convinced that he can't do it. And that's how I view the Green Party. The Green Party's there. We all can vote for it. We love their platform, but we have been convinced that no one's going to vote for it, so no one votes for it. The Green Party can't win because you and I don't vote for them. That's it. There's nothing else holding the Green Party back. And we'll let RJ jump in here. I don't know if you heard a little bit of the discussion, RJ, but did you have anything you wanted to chime in on about this part here?
No, I mean, I think in general, the reason why the Green Party is coming back together after it got obliterated, really, in the general election because of the whole lesser of two evilisms from both parties that was enacted to crush third parties. And also MPP in general putting out that statement saying that, oh, we don't want to just use a purely lefty agenda. We kind of want to add different types of ideologies, and that pissed off the lefties, and they just went back to the Green Party. So I feel like in general, the whole idea to have MPP was like, okay, we understand statewide you have a lot of Greens, but the whole idea was, okay, you could do MPP in terms of federal. But if you look at a lot of the things that they're doing, I mean, the grassroots activists, they do have a lot of problems with MPP, so those are valid. So in theory, yes, could it be a good thing? But in practice, so far, it hasn't been the most productive.
So why do you think, I mean, me and Nick were talking about, why do you think that, for example, like we have these left-wing groups, but they don't seem to want or have any interest in being a coalition. So, for example, DSA, MPP, and the Green Party, I feel like that should be a coalition. And I know DSA. I mean, I know you're a DSA. You're still a DSA member, RJ.
Well, not officially in terms of actually, but I am affiliated with like YDSA, which is the Young Democratic Socialists of America. I also attend some DSA meetings with Detroit DSA, and I used to be kind of active with MPP like months ago. That was like months and months and months ago. So I do have some like knowledge from people from the inside, from their experiences with really all organizations. A DSA really is good with grassroots organizing, you know, ballot initiatives, getting people that way. The Green Party historically has been pretty good with just purely electoral politics. And MVP, they're trying to do a mash of both, but in reality, you have to try to find out what you can be great at, and actually try to find like, okay, what is our strategy, and what is our goals. And so far, MPP's goal is like, okay, let's break the two-party duopoly. Okay, that's fine. But how are you going to do that? What strategies are you going to employ? And what type of rules do you have in your party or that everyone's voices can be heard and there's clear direction from the top to the bottom? And so that's just the perspective I've seen.
Yeah, I just with DSA, the Green Party, and MPP, it just seems like it's it seems like the left is divided not on policy but on strategy.
Exactly.
And just like when you're talking, let's use an analogy with the military. Let's say DSA is Army. Let's say MPP is Navy. Let's say Green Party is the Marines. Like you all have the same goal. It doesn't mean you have the same way of doing things. So that's why I don't understand. Like, yeah, you're separate organizations. I don't get the fighting. It's like we all want Medicare for all. You want to do it that way. I'm going to do it this way. Why don't we both attack it? You attack it the way you want to do it, and I attack it the way you want to do it. So those are the issues with MPP. What are some of the issues though with DSA? Because I know DSA is another. Like, there's been some current back and forth with different people and Ryan even. So what's happening with DSA? Whoever wants to answer
that. I know there are some people with criticism. I know Ryan Knight had a lot of criticism of them. There are a lot of people on the DSA who they are kind of the protectors of the squad and Bernie Sanders, because obviously they're Democratic Socialists and they're the one who started this movement. So I understand why they got a lot of respect for them. And they act as their defenders, which doesn't make sense to me because I told you guys, even when I have a lot of respect for Bernie, but you guys know my thoughts on how he's been acting recently, and I don't separate those. And when people criticize people, even I'm like, I don't. If they are, I mean, if there's someone who is of the working class who don't have a lot of power, I'm be more likely to stick up for them. But if you're a politician who make $170,000 per year with the best healthcare plan in the world, they would be okay. I'm not worried about them getting their feelings hurt. I think this criticism is good because we should always have pressure on them. So there's frustration with people like Ryan Knight and Jimmy Dore, those people get upset because they criticize AOC and Bernie and the squad. The one thing I want to chime in at the end though, and I'll pass it to RJ, is DSA is really compartmentalized, whereas lies a lot of local. It's based on a lot of local activity as well. So you can have a really horrible DSA chapter if you have a shit lib that's like the charge of that DSA in that local area. But you also can have a powerful DSA who does really good work if you have staff that is like hardcore socialists or leftists. Because one of the criticism I heard of people going after DSA, like God, like DSA in some areas are organizing mutual aid, COVID relief efforts, and the DSA members that are doing that, like any left organization, should be praised. Just like the DSA members who just do nothing but act like they're defenders of the squad should be ashamed and should be looked down upon, because there are people like that too. I see. I don't like engaging in drama, but I see what's going on. I see when people from the DSA who got like obvious Democrat Party loyalties, and they get called out, and we've seen it a lot. But once again, I just want to stress that there are some good things that they are doing as well, based on the local area.
Okay, and that makes more sense. That does make
Yeah,
sense.
but if you got anything you want to add to that, RJ?
Yeah, I was gonna say basically that DSA is mostly city backed and local, like Nick
Yeah.
said. Just to reiterate, you take a state, whatever, like it's big city, small city, and it's a lot of success. My city DSA, Detroit DSA, what they're working on is getting someone on the police commission, so electing that person and rallying that person to be on there because all the other ones are former police people, and he would be the first
Mm,
one that's not. And so having an actual citizen there on the ground and getting them elected, it brings a different perspective. Because when you just have all cops in a room, the cops are going to win. So I think, for instance, that is a good strategy that works. Green Party is mostly, I would say, state oriented. So the
mm,
power is a lot more centralized to get things done statewide, which is a good thing, but it could be problematic as well. But I think what's really hurting MPP right now is everything is so nationalized. And yes, they have it segregated in terms of, okay, you have this state MPP party affiliation with this state coordinator, but it does kind of make it difficult for other coordinators and other people to connect and talk about strategy and what the actual goals of the organization can be. And that's at the fault of leadership. And
mm.
that's why transparency is key when you run a movement and a party, so that the organizers, the activists, and even party leadership can have open dialogues about what to do moving forward.
Okay. I just have one more point before we get back to the original discussion. Just listening to how you describe the, MPP and Green Party and DSA. You said one was local, you said one was state, and you said one was trying to do it nationally. I mean, what I was hearing is groups that should be a coalition and work their strengths. One strength is local, one strength is statewide. And it's so apparent to me that that should be the strategy,
But here's the thing, if it,
overall strategy. And I think there needs to be more working together with different leftist organizations. That's
but
all I think.
but here the thing is that DSA does a very good job in terms of organizing.
Mm,
Green Party historically has done very good job in terms of electoral politics, getting people elected. What shuffles the playing field is that, okay, so traditionally leftists are like, okay, you want to get elected, Green Party, okay, you want to be a great organizer and get things done locally, you'll go to DSA. What kind of muddies the waters a little bit is MPP going national. They're trying to combine organizing with electoral politics at the same time. And
mm,
so when you have these different type of organizations, especially with MPP saying that they're not going to be just a purely leftist organization, it kind of pisses off the Greens. And also, two, you're taking organizers away from DSA as well.
mm.
So all three factions are kind of like really struggling about which direction they want to go. And that's kind of the scenario that's happening right now.
Well, hopefully we can work something out with there. Okay, so let's travel back. This was a tangent that I did want to go on, but let's travel back to the topic at hand, which is white fear and American policing. So the next section I kind of wanted to delve into was solutions to white fear, solutions to fixing what white fear is contributing to. So I don't believe that American policing is going to have any sort of substantial upgrade, change, adjustment without a general strike. And some people might say, well, general strike, what does the general strike and hitting their pockets have to do with American policing. And believe it or not, it has a lot to do with it, because American policing is tied to profits. Like, what people need to understand is our criminal justice system is a business.
Yeah.
Policing is a business. You know, you're wondering why are police writing all these tickets? Because they're raising money for the city. So it's a business. You're stopping black and brown people, sending them to jail. Who are the people? The people that intake them have to do this. The people who put them in booking. The district attorney. The attorney that I forget, the free attorney that every defendant, public defender, that's what it's called. The public defender, somebody has to pay them. Somebody has to pay the judges. Somebody has to, who's going to pay for the military equipment that's being sent to these cities. So there's a lot of money involved in the criminal justice system and American policing. And a lot of it is tied to keeping police departments racist, or keeping police departments exactly the way that they are now. So my question to both of you, I'll start with RJ, since she just got on, is how does both parties contribute to the racist state of American policing, contribute to the militarizing of policing? How do both parties, Republican and Democrats, how do they do that? RJ.
I would say really in general, if you start with the Republican Party, they're unabashed with their love for policing and for the Constitution, quote, air quotes. So their ability to just double down, not capitulate, and just keep going and doing what they're doing with funneling the police state money is which kind of helps them, because all the corporate back interests, the military industrial complex, they all are in lockstep with what the Republicans are going to do. And don't get me wrong, the Democrats are too, but it's the unabashedness of it. But if
Yes.
you look at the Democrat side, even under Obama, while he was crying and singing Amazing Grace to black people across the country, he was giving the local and state governments more money for policing and rioting gear to kill their kids. So it's so the difference between really the Republicans is they're unabashed, while it's the Democrats, they play into it a little bit more to distract you. It's a distraction, and so that they
Absolutely.
can keep doing what they always been doing.
And I think another thing that kind of, and it shows how both corporate parties contribute to, American policing, and that is their ties to police unions. Like, um, like I'm a union guy, but police unions is the one union I'm not for them, because they're all about keeping in place the white male power structure, and also keeping black people oppressed. So again, I'm going to send the same question uh, to Nick. How does both parties contribute to the state of what the police state right now?
So I mentioned earlier on in the show at the very beginning how I was going to expand on my take I had earlier of why the liberal class who are feigning outrage over the police shootings are upsetting me almost just as much as conservatives. Now, to be clear, I am talking about a very specific part of the electorate here. So when I say this, you guys got to remember, according to polling, about 70% of Democrats support defunding police. So there is a huge disconnect between the average voter and the people I'm talking to. The people I'm talking about are the people who was joining the fascists into attacking Rashida Tlaib when she called for police abolition. We're like, oh, we can't have this. You guys can't go that far left. You guys are hurting the Democrat Party. These are the liberals who are against defunding police. So I'm talking about around 30% of the Democratic electorate. This 30% of the Democratic electorate, I believe, is more harmful than the conservatives and the MAGA that's against our movement. Because so you got to analyze what they are actually accomplishing here. So whenever there's a black person who is killed by the police, what they're doing is they're feigning outrage, and they're using they're using the trauma of the family, and they're using his dead name in order to funnel more money into the police state.
Mm-hmm.
Let me repeat that. So when George Floyd dies and Derek Chauvin put his knee on him and killed him, they passed the George Floyd Act. Which, when they passed the George Floyd Act, there should have been people in the fucking street. This is one of the things that should have drove black people away from the Democratic Party, because they gave more money to the police in the George Floyd Act. So what did they actually accomplish? What did they manage to do? They took the black man who got killed by the police and used that to justify giving more money to the same forces of oppression who killed them. So my question is, who's worse, that or MAGA? Who's more effective, that or MAGA? The Democratic Party will always be more effective at upholding white supremacy than MAGA. Because once again, they will have a resistance to them, and the people who pretend to resist the police state under Donald Trump will be dead silent when Joe Biden did. Once again, there's a increased flow of military gear under Joe Biden. They are expanding mandatory minimum for drug offenses under Joe Biden. So this is why you have Richard Spencer came out and said, "Yeah, I think me and RJ talked about it on our show at the time when it first came out. I think when he was like, yeah, I think it'll be better if Joe Biden won." And I said there's two reasons why he do that. I think he fucked with the liberals at the same time, but there is some truth to that. Where they were like, yeah, actually, if you look at it, Black Lives Matter started under Obama. Stanton Rock Ferguson was under Obama. So this is why I will never, ever apologize to anyone who gets upset with me when I say we should never vote for the Democratic Party. I mean, once again, I guess I can kind of contradict myself with that because I said I'm a policy-based voter. But when you look at the mainstream establishment Democrats, there's no way that someone like Joe Biden will ever get my vote. I don't care who's on the other side of the ballot, because he's complicit with this police state that continue to use Black lives to funnel more money into the same institution that's killing us. So that's why they both complicit with the Republicans. So that, once again, I'm only talking about the 30% because I brought that up earlier because I'm super hard on those people. But once again, the vast majority of Democratic voters support defund the police. But the elite liberal class, the people that are actually in charge, the blue checks on Twitter, these are the people that actually have access to the politicians, and they're the one who's like, oh no, we can't do defund the police because that's hurting Democratic Party down ballot, blah, blah, do all that kind of stuff. So I had those people as they were dangerous to our movement, just like conservatives are. The same danger they present. But go ahead, CJ.
No, what I was gonna say, let's take a step back and see, you know, defund the police versus well, defund the police is just a step to abolishing the police. But my question or my comment is this: that are people up in arms, the people who are against defund the police, are they up in arms about defund the police because they believe it's going to be unsafe, or defunding means somebody's getting less money? You understand? Like it has nothing to do with if they could make more money the other way by defunding it, they would. But are they really upset? Are they Are they upset and fearful of crime going up by defunding the police, or are they more upset about profits going down for defunding the police?
The profits portion is definitely from um, the the profits portion. Yes, that's for the corporate back interests. But I mean, the reason why the Democrats can get away with this stuff a lot more than the Republicans is look at the CBC, the Congressional Black Caucus. Do the Republicans have a Congressional Black Caucus? No. So what the Democrats have done is they go to that who's that dude from South Carolina? I keep forgetting his name. Shit, he's in the House Majority Whip.
Clyburn,
right? They go to Clyburn. They go from the one lady from Florida who wears the cowboy hats. They go to all these different Democrats from the CBC. They get their permission, and a lot of them say, "Hey, you know, I don't want to defund the police because I don't want crime to go up." You know, of course, because they're dumb. They don't actually understand that police don't prevent crime; they respond to crime. So they're fearmonger with that, and that's pretty much common across a lot of people who are middle aged or senior citizens who are black. That's the problem we have too, is that the CBC in general is really sheep herding black people really into the Democratic Party and making them more
Yeah.
susceptible to these type
Yeah.
of fear mongering approaches. I mean, even look at the whole fiasco with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer when they were kneeling and wearing kente cloth. Like originally, I thought it was their idea, but it was the CBC who recommended they do that. So I think that's a great
What?
approach.
I did. This is the first time. This is the first time I'm hearing that. So this is a little. It's not. So it's not shocking or surprising. It's just I didn't know that. That's
Yeah,
pretty terrible. Like your only contribution is to tell them to virtue signal by wearing these cloths. Like that's their only contribution. Like the CBC, you don't understand how much I dislike the CBC. I call them the corporate Black Caucus, and I also call them the largest collection of House Negroes in the world. Is the
Yep.
CBC? That's what I call them. So, Nick, what do you have to say, sir?
Do not get me started on the Black Congressional Caucus.
Yeah,
Because when I started my Substack, I already knew what the first article I was gonna write. Like I already knew. I worked on it for about 3-4 weeks. While I was telling people to embrace MLK and reject Barack Obama, because the point of the op-ed was a scathing critique of the black leaders and why we got in this position.
mm-hmm.
And just to make it very simple for you guys to understand why black leaders failed us. Income racial inequality right now is worse than it was in the height of the civil rights movement. So, what did they accomplish after MLK died? And they killed MLK. They killed Frederick Hampton. They killed a lot of these black leftist leaders who wouldn't fall in line. And then you had the people like John Lewis, who I don't care if he passed, I'll still call him out because he's complicit in propping up the police state. He voted for endless war, and he's responsible for the slave trade in Libya because he voted to give Obama authorization to go in there. So when you look at his legacy, people are like, oh, John Lewis is a civil rights icon. To me, that's not his legacy. His legacy is the slave trade that's going on in Africa right now. Right. And there's a lot of people who took the revolutionary route. Angela Davis was another one who was in the civil rights movement. You see how they treated her when they put her in prison and all that kind of stuff. So there was the people. Yeah, there was two paths. You had a revolutionary path. The people who took the revolutionary path, they paid the price for that, or they were silenced. And then you had the people who took the other path. That's the Black Congressional Caucus. That's the Jim Clyburn. And then what makes it even worse and what makes these people even more nefarious is they use their clout that they got during the civil rights era to shift black people to the right and funnel them into the police state. So people are like, oh, why are you so hard on your black leaders? I'm harder on them because they're black. Like, that never make any sense to me. Black people like, why do you hate Obama? I hate Obama because he's black. So what he did is even more shameful than what Joe Biden did, because we can expect that out of Joe Biden. So I never understood people who always say, oh, we got to support our black leaders. No, if they fuck up, we should go after them even more. That's why they were the first people I go after. And I say I will never apologize for not supporting the Democratic Party. The Black Congressional Caucus is another reason why. Right. And I'm still excited. Well, I criticized Cori Bush recently, but I'm still excited that she beat William Lancey Clay. And I will support anyone who's running against the Black Congressional Caucus that is on the left. I don't care what party they ran under, because these people are some of the worst actors in Washington. They did unbelievable amount of harm to the black community by what they have done. One last thing, and I'll pass it right back over to you guys to explain why. One thing they did, and this is with the defense that the liberals use to defend Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden whenever Bernie Sanders and the progressive movement would attack them over the crime bill. They would say, oh, do you know the black community was actually supportive of the crime bill at the time? This is what they do. Actually, if you look at it, it was the Black Congressional Caucus who was supportive of the crime bill. Back then, there was I actually looked into it. There was grassroots activists of pressure from the black community that said, no, we shouldn't do this. those people was whitewashed out of history, and now they say the black people supported it because the Black Congressional Caucus was pushing for it. So that's why they are the most dangerous people. So you can't talk about Joe Biden and the crime bill without talking about how they garnered black support for it. They did, and the black boomers mostly did support the crime bill because they saw the black leader, they saw John Lewis, they saw all these people being supportive of it. So that's why they are the worst thing. So I think RJ or CJ both chime in. I'll pass it to you guys.
I'll let you, RJ, if you want to go, I'll let you go before I go.
Oh yeah, I mean, just in general, it just shows that the black bourgeoisie are the ones really holding us back from really from freedom and actually getting better in the society. And it seems like the CBC, America is the Titanic, and as long as the CBC has first class tickets, who gives a fuck? Basically, that's kind of how it is. They know the
Pretty much.
Titanic's going down. If they have first class seats and they get the life preserver while all of us freeze to death, then it's all right with them. And that's kind of the problem. And also too, Cory Booker with plenty other CBC members put on Twitter I think yesterday, that for the first time in
Yeah.
4 years, the CBC is back in the White House. So look at them, sheepdogging already. So they're
Yeah, I saw that, and I was disgusted that the first picture I've seen of the CDC in years,
CBC.
or CBC, I did say it wrong. CBC in years is them going to the White House. Why am I not seeing a picture of you down in Minnesota? What's happening down there? Why don't we have pictures of the Congressional Black Caucus about being together down when George Floyd was murdered? Like, the Congressional Black Caucus
One second,
might
guys.
be called the Congressional White Caucus. They literally don't do anything for Black community. They do bad things for the Black community. And I mean, just about every single one, from Hakeem Jeffries to I mean, Jim Kleinburn is, to me, is just seeing his face. I just want to vomit just seeing his face. That guy is just disgusting to me. But but the Congressional Black Caucus, I believe, would do less harm if they didn't even exist. Like, it would be less harmful if the Congressional Black Caucus didn't exist, because when you have the token, and that's essentially who they are. When you have the token, that's who everybody wants to go to. All the people in power want to go to the token and say, "What do you think? Give us the Black view." When they know damn well it's not the Black view, it's the corporate view, and they just want a Black face, spewing those corporate views. So, that's all I'm going to say about the Congressional Black Caucus. Go ahead, RJ.
Well, I do kind of want to disagree with you on 2 points. One, I would be kind of hesitant to erase their blackness
Mm-hmm.
because they are the black bourgeoisie. There's a difference between the black proletariat and the black bourgeoisie. We're right now, they're the black proletariat. We're the black working class. They're the black rich class, the black bourgeoisie. That's who they represent, right? So, like the Oprahs, the Tyler Perrys, they're the ones they can look at and say, see, we have representation. We don't have the black proletariat representation, you know? So that's
That is
kind of the
true.
argument that I would make. And also, too, I do disagree with you that we shouldn't necessarily have a CBC. The original CBC was co-founded by Shirley Chisholm in, I
Mm.
believe, the late '60s or the early '70s, and it was an adversarial caucus. They would go after the Democratic Party. They brought their own chairs to the table and went after them to advocate for Black issues. Shirley
That's what
Chisholm,
that's what we need. What
I know.
when did we? And I agree with both of your counterpoints. Actually, that first point was a good point. Um, when did the Congressional Black Caucus lose its way?
I would say really with the turn of Ronald Reagan, really with the '80s,
Mm.
because the late '60s, you did see some change. The '70s was the stalling point because the '70s was weird. It was like the Democrat and Republican Party were pretty much even in terms of the power structure with Carter and with Gerald Ford and with Nixon during that time period. Like Congress itself was pretty much very much split. And then the ideology wasn't necessarily different. When Reagan came in the '80s, it flipped the entire scale to the right. So Democrats were chasing the Republicans to the right even more than they were originally. So the Black Caucus If the Republicans and Democrats are all going to the right and you're standing there, instead of just standing there and being aggressive too, they got older, they capitulated, they went to the right with them. So then when you have a guy in the 90s uh, with the Clintons, when they passed that bill that was spearheaded too by Joe Biden, the heterodoxy was already there. So they just said, hey, we're gonna pass these different laws because they're for it now.
Mm.
And that's kind of the situation that we've really gotten ourselves into. So the best way to reverse that structure is, I don't know if it's the right idea to bring younger, more radical faces into the CBC, because in general, I believe the CBC is far gone now,
Mm.
but I'm not necessarily sure how we could bring them back to the left, as well as how we counteract them. Because even DSA-backed candidates, like a Corey Bush, like a Ilhan Omar, who are black people, they were smeared by the CBC just for
Exactly.
Justice Democrats and for DSA for primarying them, and they're black.
That's
So
the
they
and that's my point. Yeah.
and so me personally, I know the history of that, but I'm struggling with the correct strategy in order to take out some of those CB incumbents and replace them back with CBC, because we know, Lord knows, if we run a person who's not black and they beat a CBC member, it's Armageddon for CBC.
Yeah. 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 And that's the thing about this is one of the last things about the CBC. Like, this is one thing that bothers me about black bourgeoisie is that they know a certain segment of the black population is just going to follow them regardless, and they take advantage of that. Like, they know people are going to look towards them for black viewpoints, and they take advantage of that, and with basically to the highest bidder, and that's, I mean, that's all I want to say about this, the CBC. I do want to get kind of back and kind of tie this in the CBC into uh, the main discussion, and that is, I do believe that the CBC, just like Obama, contributes to white male supremacies by way of their policies, by way um, of their beliefs. But I mean, going back to the George Floyd killing, and even up to now with Dante Wright, what, like, the Congressional Black Caucus have been completely silent, have been completely inept. Like, I can't even recall what the Congressional Black Caucus did or even said after the George Floyd murders. Your thoughts?
In
Yeah,
general, I'll be short and I'll let Nick go. But in general, when there's a Democrat in office, the CBC is always silent as a church mouse, and they make excuses like, "Oh, well, we have a plan," or "There's like a certain process we have to do." Whether it's when it's Republican office like Donald Trump, they raise holy hell. Oh, this is racist. Oh, it's the institution, which we all agree with,
Hmm.
but they do it under Republican. But when it's a Democrat, oh, we're trusting the process. We're coordinating with, internally. We're gonna. It's the same thing under Obama. Like, all the civil rights leaders went to sleep under Obama when he was in office, especially when Black Lives Matter started under his second term. Like, uh, Sandra Bland, Trayvon Martin, all these different type of individuals who were killed by the police, and it was completely utter. Tamir Rice, we just saw a comment as well. So that's kind of the problem. And you look at now under Biden, it's going to be even harder under Obama, because at least because under Obama, he was the first black one, so that pulls a lot of weight in the black community.
Mm-hmm.
With Joe Biden, he's Uncle Joe wearing sunglasses, looking ice cream. He's Obama's best friend. He's the right hand man to Barack. And we all know that once Barack comes out the shadows and crushes our movement, when he speaks, the black community still listens. It's hard in my
Yeah.
family. I can be right about, they can agree with me all the policy issues, but they will agree with Obama's strategy. That's the problem we have.
Yeah. It's to me is very disheartening to see black people participate in their own demise. That's what's sad to see, uh, to me. Nick, did you have any wanna?
yeah. So what I want to do, I just want to slightly reframe this question, because the question is pretty much what the Black Congressional Caucus has done for us. Now, it's not that they haven't done anything for us; they actively work against us.
Mm.
So there's a story that came out recently. Maxine Waters, she's the love child of the Black Congressional Caucus, has been in power for a very long time, and since she was in power, she's climbed to very powerful positions. And I remember I was looking this story up because while you guys are talking, I'm glad I found it. But Katie Porter, she kind of more in tune with the mainstream Democratic Party, but she does a good job at her hearing when it comes to pressuring Wall Street Titans, and she was going viral with those when she dressed those people down. Me personally, I never really cared that much about those because the thing is like, what does that lead to? That's why I never you never see me like yes queen over that because like what is that actually accomplishing? But Maxine Waters, there's a story of how Katie Porter got shafted out of a very important. I'm trying to find the exact name of the position that she
The
was.
House Finance Committee.
Yeah, I say that the House Finance Committee, and apparently she got shut out because Maxine Waters ruled in and thought that she was too hard on Wall Street. That's the love child and the star of the Black Congressional Caucus. That's where she stands. She do not like people who are too hard on the institution that took our houses, and tanked our wealth. So it's not that they're not doing anything for us. It's they are actively our enemies. They are funding the police. They are super soft on what. Like remember, Kamala Harris, she didn't charge Steve Mnuchin when they was illegally foreclosing on homes. And who
Mm.
was the people they were foreclosing on? They looked into it, and mostly people of color, African Americans. That is the portrayal of the highest level. So that's why I wanted to write that piece, and that's why I always convey to people. It's not that I'm complaining that they don't do enough. I'm complaining because they actually get a lot of shit done that hurts our community. Like I'll bring up that story because that story immediately popped in my head because that's a good example of where Maxine Waters, where Jim Clyburn, once again, Jim Clyburn is the highest funded person in Congress by Big Pharma, and then he opposes Medicare for all, which is I wrote another article about how that the most pro-black policy platform you can run on in current American mainstream discourse. So he's opposed to the most impactful policy idea that we have. Maxine Water props up Wall Street, who destroyed our wealth and continue to victimize us with predatory capitalism, and it's just over and over again they back in the institution that is destroying us. So that's why I want to chime in with because I do agree because they're not doing anything for us, but they're actively harmful to the black community, which is why I'm happy that Corey Bush beat William Lancey Clay despite all my criticism of the squad, because one of the reasons why William Lancey Clay had to go because he was supportive of the plea during the Ferguson incident, and that was started Corey Bush winning the primary him in the first place. So, and it still killed to this day that LC did endorse Corey Bush a second time because William Lancey Clay was like, "Oh yeah, I'm for the Green New Deal." Like, so you were corrupt as fuck. like, do you understand? We sent you in there to take out corrupt Democrats. Like, policy is one thing, but the corruption is another important thing. So. That's why he had to go. He was once again I'm in Missouri, so everyone always talks shit about him. He was very closely tied to
This was
police
personal,
unions.
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How far was his district from where you are?
Yeah, St. Louis is about 3 hours away.
Yeah.
They're in St. Louis. I'm in Kansas City.
Okay.
But I remember when Ferguson was going on, there was a ton of chatter in Missouri and the black community, even more so than usual because there's crazy shit going on. And that's where Corey Bush got her momentum because there were so many activists like, yo, what the fuck? We got this black dynasty here that's being backed by police unions, and weak in terms of standing up for us because he has conflicts of interest with St. Louis police department. So that's why I'm like, if you see any black electors that are challenging these people, I mean, those are kind of races. I'm like, yeah, we need to get rid of these motherfuckers as long as the person in the race are supporting the right policy because these people are actively destructive to our community in ways I have a hard time even quantifying. I'll give you guys examples, but there's so many I can't even remember on top of my head. I mean, these are just some of the most egregious examples of the Black Congressional Caucus supporting policies that destroyed our community.
But here's the thing, though. The thing is that the black boomers themselves, if you look at black American history in terms of how much money they have, in terms of the profits they make, in terms of income they have, and the benefits, the black boomers are the richest, really, so one of the richest black Americans.
Yeah.
And blackness in American history. So it kind of
Yep.
makes sense why they'll be for policing, because they want to protect their own.
Yep. They
So
sold us out to the police state. That's why I said when black boomers supported Joe Biden, despite us constantly hammering them with the crime bill, they sold us out. I don't know what else to say. They sold us out to the police state when they supported the crime bill in the 90s, and they did it again by supporting Jim Crow Joe, who is still supportive of this police state and attacking. He's not even condemning these police killings. Instead, he's attacking the looters the same way that Donald Trump did. So that's the person that black boomers voted for. So thank you guys for selling us out again. Fuck. Say sorry, guys.
That one was pretty funny, Nick.
I'll pass it back to you guys.
Yeah. Before I get back to the discussion, I forgot to say this. Make sure you share this video, particularly on YouTube for the algorithm. Make sure you like the video. Somebody just reminded me that I did not say that. Now back to the discussion. We are coming towards the end of the episode, but I did want to chime in with this. And the reason, kind of like what you mentioned this before, like why do you hate Obama so much? Like black people asking black people, like why do you hate Obama so much? Why do you hate the Black Caucus so much? It's because we are being oppressed. So black people are being oppressed, and then when a black person makes it, you know, we say, oh, I made it. What black people really mean when they're saying I made it, that means I've made it out of oppression, because financially you can sometimes buy your way out of oppression by simply the amount of money you have. But the reason there's so much animosity for black leaders is because it's like they're turning their back on the oppression that they grew up in. A lot of them grew up in themselves. It's like you grew up here, you were poor, and now you're over here fleecing the same poor that you were 30, 40 years ago. And that's, to me, is the rub. That's the part, to me, why I have so much more animosity for those actors, the actors that know what black people are going through, that have been through some of the same struggles that black people have gone through. But now that they have changed over to the black bourgeoisie, they have amnesia. And being the fact that they went through some of the same struggles and they're doing the same thing to those people, that to me is why I have a lot more animosity for those leaders.
For sure.
Anyone had a take on that before I get to the last question here? Okay, so to sum this up, we talked about white fear and American policing. We talked about how white fear permeates through many different levels of our society, from legislation to policing to we didn't even mention this earlier, Nick, but white fear also when it comes to medicine, like, you know,
yes,
when these white doctors that have black patients, but they have these unreasonable white fears. So what do we do about it? Like, we feel helpless. Voting either takes too long or doesn't do enough. The people who we already voted in aren't doing anything and not listening to us, yet we're still being killed. Like, so my question, my last question to both of you, I'll start with Nick, is what can black people do? What can black allies do about this crisis of killing black men?
Like I said, electoral politics, that's a long game we can't really rely on. I mean, I always say we should take all our shots. So if you're in a position where you can vote someone who had good policies, I see no reason why you shouldn't shoot that shot. But we need a new version of the Black Panthers, armed black militias. I have been seeing the start of that. But what's really upsetting me, and I hope we don't see it because of the Derek Chauvin trial. I already talked about how I'm not really optimistic about that, just because I have no faith in our criminal justice system. Um, but we should have never left the streets. The idea that we left the streets when Donald Trump lost, that's something that really hurts. Like I'm like, so are we really that easily led back to sleep? And that's kind of why I do what I do. And I'm happy when people tell me that I radicalize them, because that's the only steps that we have until we can have enough numbers in order to have the protest. Supporting amazing local organizations. I'm blessed to have Casey Tenants in the Kansas City area. I want to reach out to them because I shortly covered the story and how Casey Tenants was working with a lot of homeless unions. Yeah, the homeless problem is so bad. There's homeless unions, by the way, guys. So the homeless union and Casey Tenant has put a lot of pressure on the Kansas City mayor here, and they managed to secure 120 housing units that they're going to pay through by hotels to a lot of the homeless victims in the COVID crisis. So that was a long fight. It took them weeks and weeks and weeks to win that. But once again, this homelessness is a Black issue, and this is something that liberals don't talk about. Because 40% of the homelessness, despite us only being 13% of the population, are Black. That's insane. So that's why the only thing we can do in the short term, which is why I said the long term is not gonna leave too many people behind, is do everything you can to help those local organizations. And that's why I want to reach out to Casey Tenants and see what I can continue to help them with. And if you have another local organization in your area, that's the route that we need to be taking. But the Black bourgeoisie and Black pop culture, and even people who I believe have good intentions, but they're just not educated, they are hurting us because they are pacifying our movement by supporting Democrats. I mean, LeBron James, Beyonce, Jay-Z.
Yeah.
Imagine if you had those people. And once again, I'm not a big celebrity worshiper. The one thing I did disagree with Margaret Kimberly on when she was on our show, how we shouldn't be criticizing those people, but because I think we should. Because imagine if Jay-Z, if LeBron James, if Oprah, if all these Black oligarchs, they funnel all their money and resources towards the revolution instead of funneling us to the Democratic Party. So once again, people might say, "Oh, of course they wouldn't do that because they're the Black bourgeoisie." My question is, why the fuck not? Why shouldn't we be calling them out until they do that? Because things would be way different if we had. I mean, once again, Tupac was pretty damn revolutionary. He was anti-capitalist, and now you notice that there's not anyone like him, like because they realized we could not have anyone in mainstream. And that's why I got a lot of admiration for No Name, who's preaching the truth right now as well. They completely neutered the Black bourgeoisie and celebrity class. Where you got back in native Black celebrities like Muhammad Ali, and I just brought Tupac, who was preaching anti-capitalist, like the government got enough money to wage war, but they can't feed the poor. He was preaching that in his music, but we don't got no one like that now because the Black bourgeoisie is just lulling people back to sleep. So that's we gotta continue to call them out because they're going to continue to be a problem. Because why aren't people upset right now? Because they're being distracted by these people. NBA Finals is on. They're too busy listening to concerts, and I mean, I'm not even mad at that. But if these people would take their enthusiasm and get their audience to realize that there's a giant problem going on in the Black community, instead of, hey, we're balling, y'all, it's all good, y'all, capitalism is good, because that's what they do. They show their shoes, they show their watches, they show their chains, and then people are like, oh, I can get that one day. Meanwhile, they're not talking about the fact that Black income inequality is worse than the civil rights era. And one last thing, I went long, but I will toss it over to RJ. I mean, if there's been a lot of discussion, and I'll be honest, this is a little bit conspiracy, but there have been a lot of discussion and leaks about how the CIA infiltrated rap music, and they stopped them from being revolutionary, and how they wanted to infiltrate Black media, Black entertainment, to make them more capitalist friendly, and that's exactly what happened. So I want to do some more reading so I can bring up the facts more on that, but I heard about that a lot before, and that's kind of my main criticism of the Black bourgeoisie is they just sheep herd people back to capitalism, and they are diffusing Black revolutionary spirit that used to exist. Sorry, one more thing, and because Malcolm X called this out. Malcolm X famously had a spiel where he talked about how when it comes to mainstream political discourse, they put these black celebrities in front instead. Meanwhile, you have white America. You don't got white celebrities going out in front of those issues. So it's something that even Malcolm X called out 50 years ago. How you have black celebrities that are sheepering us into failure. Anyway, I'll pass it back to the RJ. That was my final spiel on that.
What was the original question, CJ?
Just like what, like where when you feel like you don't have a lot of options, like the voting option is not really viable to fix the American policing, and the elected leaders we already voted in aren't really doing anything. So my question was, what those avenues of change sort of being cut off or at least reduced, what avenues do Black people and our allies have into fixing this, into changing this?
Well, if you look at really Black American history, um, how we've gotten our power is really by working together as a community. So like we talk about all the time about the cookouts and everything, but it wasn't just to, dance and have fun. It was actually a lot of times just to meet different people, talk about what organizations you're for, really talk about how you want to change your community, what you're doing good, what's bad. And that type of communication is needed because there's a lot of tribalism, especially really in the Black communities, regardless of where you live. Like if you're East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, or South, if you can come together and have these conversations, it could transcend across the country. And I believe with that rich history, we should continue to do so, because relying on these politicians to really save us has not been working since the 80s. Not to beat on the 80s in general, it doesn't work unless you have that big community organizers doing it. And that's what's pretty hard right now, because in the Black community specifically right now, it's heavily on the electoral politics side. Like my entire family's like, yeah, we gotta vote Democrat. We have to do this electorally. And it's not really working right now, and there's so many excuses as to, well, Biden, he he's trying to do this, but it's just depressing to listen to. So we need to continue that deep, rich history of working with our communities, feeding each other, clothing each other, giving each other opportunities when needed. Um, my father, he worked in my dad's store. My dad, he stole in a grocery store in Detroit, Michigan. Um, he had my dad work there in the summers. Used to hire different types of people, Black-owned business. I know that's a different conversation about Black capitalism I won't get into. But in terms of you as a community, you have to try and help each other when you can, because relying on someone else outside your community can be problematic because you can potentially be exploited. And once again, there's exploitation inside the Black community too. But in theory, that's the best way. You can not only help your fellow man, but help your community as well.
And to piggyback off what you're saying, I absolutely believe that that should be the case, and it should also be tethered to or tied to direct action. Like Black people, civil rights really is a lesson in direct action that I feel Black people today really haven't picked up that mantle. Um, like Black people dug in, for example, when they boycotted buses where you were walking. Now, you can't think of it now where your job is 10 minutes away walking. You're talking about walking miles. And they decided to boycott buses for over a year in order to get change. And I just think that direct action is the only thing that will work. And of course, if we had the Black bourgeoisie on our side, we would be able, for example, if that NBA lockout, if LeBron James said, hey, I'm not playing basketball until the NBA gets up in Congress's ear and tell them to make some changes, it would happen.
But here's
Because
the problem.
the NBA needs LeBron James to be on TV for their media partners.
But the problem.
What I think, I'm going to pass it back to you. So what I think the Black bourgeoisie, since a lot of them were poor before, they have a fear of doing too much because they're going to lose their money. You can be Black bourgeoisie and also help the black underclass. You can be both. Like your money's still going to be there, LeBron, for example, if you go on strike. Do you think the NBA is going to say, "Hey, he went on strike, so let's not give those guys, the only guys who can play basketball at this level, the money"? Like it's not going to work out that way. I forgot who was trying to chime in, but
Go ahead, RJ.
Yeah, what I was gonna say is that the black bourgeoisie in corporate America, they have a partnership, like specifically with the NBA. If the players would have kept going on, if the players would have actually boycotted, meaning that they would stop play, every NBA team would effectively be able to void their contracts within the CBA agreement. And those CBA agreements that happen every 7 years, the Players Association and the NBA come together and they have really a compromise on what are the rules between the players and the team. So if they would have effectively boycotted, they would have forfeited X amount of dollars for every game they missed. Now, the NBA had a forbearance in terms of that entire week that they didn't play. So if they missed those games, they would say, okay, okay. But if this went on so long and the NBA would have lost profits, those NBA players would have lost millions of dollars.
Mm.
And so even with Obama coming in to save the day for America, ha 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 ha, um, what it showed too is that yes, the black bourgeoisie is sympathetic towards the black proletariat, but the problem is they have a fear of going backwards. Once you're there, you want
Yeah,
to stay there, right?
yeah,
And that's kind of the problem too, because in the end, they do side with corporate America. And since they're one of the lucky ones, they believe in that ideology of, well, if you work hard, you can make it in America. See, look at me.
yeah,
So those are two sides of the
yeah.
coin that we're trying to fight against.
I like this comment by Boot the Head. I want to chime in with this real quick. Cause he said, imagine some celebrity buying a hotel and giving it to the community, provide housing, and you can put a store in it, a garden. Yeah, and that's exactly why I have a lot of disrespect for people like Oprah and these black oligarchs who could easily do that. Like they will wipe their ass for that money. You could easily buy a hotel and end black homelessness in the area. I'll just mention how 40% of homeless are black. How is that even possible? That's ridiculous. Especially in LA, where a lot of these black celebrities and black millionaires are conjugated at. So that's a great comment. I'll pass it back to CJ, but I just wanted to read that. I think that's a good input on our frustration with the black celebrity because they could easily do stuff like that easily.
Yeah, yeah. Don't get me on Oprah. I've been off Oprah for decades. That she has all that money and has not used it to improve in any way the condition of black oppression, and it's a travesty in in uh, in my opinion. But I think we have come to an end. We've been here a little bit, 90 minutes or so. This has been a great discussion. Just like with a lot of our discussions, is rarely enough time to cover all the aspects we want to cover, and that's why we do this on a weekly basis. So make sure. What I do want to plug tomorrow is our group live roundtable. Make sure you check in with us 1 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time or 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So make sure you check out our live show with all 6 of us tomorrow. Make sure you also support us on Patreon. We want to do big things, but that only can be accomplished with the financial help from some of you. So please make sure you check out our Patreon, follow us on Twitter. Also, RJ, you have any shout outs or anything you want to announce before we log out?
Yeah, so tomorrow I'll be doing an interview after our FHO broadcast with Steve Cox. He's running for California's 39th congressional district. So many of you guys know him. So they'll be
Yeah.
pre-recorded. They'll be released Friday. So that'll be interesting. You'll also on Friday check me and Nick out. We're gonna be co-hosting my show on Friday. We're gonna have Sabby Sabs from Savvy Sabs Show. So that'll be a very interesting debate. We're gonna talk about the failures of the Bernie campaign. Um, really, we're gonna talk about the House progressives, what they've potentially done good, what they've done bad, and we're also going to talk about the direction the left should go in general. So it should be a great conversation. We hope you check it out.
Absolutely. And one thing I forgot to mention, Nick and I will be doing a special episode tomorrow. We have a fearless leftist making noise on Twitter, and I wanted to bring her on to talk about various leftist issues. And so Nick and I will be interviewing her. Actually, I think we're gonna do it live, but if not, it'll be released later. But if it's live, it'll be a few hours before the roundtable show, so that's awesome. So you have Nick and I with the Fearless Leftist, and then we have our roundtable, and then we have RJ in the evening recording that with Steve Cox. Nick, did you have any last minute shout outs or anything?
I appreciate everyone for watching. That's why I was asking you guys, please leave a like and share, because that's helped us out a ton. And I was tweeting earlier today. I was very happy that we hit 1,200 subscribers, which is really insane that we just launched 2 weeks ago. And we now at 1,200. So I appreciate all the support. But I'm a little bit delusional. I'll tweet out my goal. I want to see at least how close we can get to. I wanted to get to 2,000 subscribers by the end of the month. So the only way we can accomplish that, if you're watching this and you enjoy this, please share to a friend or two. Like you don't have to blow your whole family up. Just if anyone shares to at least 1 or 2 people, I think I like our chances of giving them to subscribe. So that's my goal for the end of the month. Let's see if we can get 2,000. Because I'm happy that you guys are enjoying our conversations, and we got so much good content coming up. I'm confident that we if long we get more eyes, the algorithm is not going to help us. That's why we asking you guys.
Right.
I'm confident as long as we get more eyes in front of us, people are going to like our conversations and subscribe. So that's the only thing I want to say. Help us out. We upload daily. I hope you guys enjoy the conversation. Main table discussion is tomorrow. Hype.
Yes, and so we're gonna end it there. Everything Nick and RJ said, I double down with it. Make sure you support. And we will see you next time. I'll see most of you tomorrow on Nick and I.
Yeah, and Sam Seed, and for anyone else, sorry CJ, but I just want to let you guys know that the replays of these lives always be on our YouTube page. He said he's like, fuck, I missed it. But that's why it's important to subscribe, and because you can always get the replays of all of our lives as long as you check out the YouTube page. Sorry, CJ, go ahead.
No problem. He's right. All of our lives are there. Make sure you check them out, and there will be some other content that I'm going to be uploading in the next 2 weeks. Just different videos like Rome and RJ did that I'm going to put together and get those up. So that's all we have for you today. Thank you for joining the Compton Jay Show. I want to say thanks to my 2 guest hosts, Nick and RJ, for joining me for the discussion on white fear and American policing. See you guys.